Hello, story seekers. I'm Nico.
I'm Ben, and welcome to the Tiny Bookcase. Right now, you're listening to our favourite part of the month.
Stories, discussion, and a high likelihood of gratuitous obscenities, all to sate the hunger of the story sorcerer, Eusteris.
Regular listeners will know how it works, but for newcomers, Nico and I have both written a story to the same prompt.
We're about to share those stories with each other and you for the first time. Then, we'll workshop them on mic. The prompt for this episode is Foundation. So, Ben, what have you built?
Foundation. Thank you for answering my questions. Before we end the debrief, I understand you have a prepared statement you'd like to read? Static marks the stretched moment on the recording until another voice breaks it. Did you ever hear a word so many times that you feel, somewhere inside, it has stamped your matter? I reckon God started like that. A name for a reason why, said over and over again, until it became something so solid that people built their lives on it. Science pretty much replaced God once the majority of humans could read, and I think that's where things took another turn. It became exponentially easier to manufacture ease in our lives. And so we needed fewer answers, wanted more things, yet still needed something to build on. Eventually, explanations were looked for less than conveniences. God gave way to Coke, Instagram, and Uber. It cracked our foundations. I often used to rue being born into a time of ennui, given nothing to strive for inside a broken economic system, and, despite my skills and security clearance, encouraged to put up my feet and watch humanity burn life out of the world. Then the Thura opened and changed everything. I know it changed me. It could have opened in Times Square, Shibuya Crossing, or under the Eiffel Tower. But instead, it opened on a quiet limestone hillside of an Ionian island. The first terrestrial being to see it was a goat, raising its chin from sun-scorched grass, its chewing causing the bell at its throat to clang. We don't know exactly how long it was open before the herder, Spiros, found the mesmerized animal. I'd guess an afternoon. Spiros nearly broke his neck running to the nearest town, and 3 phone calls later, I was being stowed like cargo on an unmarked plane with engines the size of double-decker buses. I was strapped in alongside baleful special forces types. The lot of them looked so like Action Man that when the coffee was brought round, I felt like I was the only real boy at a doll's tea party. I didn't laugh, though, largely because one of them looked like he would take any excuse to use the carbon-plated serrated sword strapped to his hip. We landed at the local airport, which had been closed to public flights, and I was marched across near bubbling tarmac into a pleasantly air-conditioned terminal. Our boots sounded louder than they ought to be on the stone tiles as we passed a crowd of tourists, grumbling about when their return flight would land to collect them. I watched them freeze when they clocked the folded stocks, jungle mags, and laser-sighted automatic weapons of the action men escorting me. Like you might, if you noticed a tiger stalk past you in the concourse at King's Cross. A 30-minute bumpy ride in a convoy of 4x4s later, and I was stood next to the still captivated goat, and found myself similarly mesmerized. Thura is the name Spiros the herder gave it, which just means door in Greek. But once I'd seen it, I, like everyone else involved, started saying it as though it meant portal. To say it was a dark blue tear in reality in the shape of a 5-pointed star no bigger than my torso would be a failure to deliver the promise of possibility that pulsed from it like an intoxicating scent. I watched the portal for a while. It shimmered as though it were rippling in a curious breeze blown from an unknown land. It was possible to look away, and some boffins who had arrived before me were already scanning, prodding, and measuring the portal with the frenzied excitement of a child tearing into presence. The action men I'd caught a ride with were unpacking and configuring their ordnance. They set up a defensive position by posting guns up on the hills around the portal, like they were planning to reenact Starship Troopers. The word alien hadn't been far from my mind since I'd clapped eyes on the Thura. The organised shape and structure of it hinted of an intelligence behind it, but I wasn't willing to dismiss the word God from the scenario. Not until something came through. I was inside a hastily rigged UV shelter, looking away when it happened, and what I saw sticks in my mind, the last peaceful moment of my life. The sun was at its hottest in the late afternoon, and we were exposed on those bare khaki-smeared hills. Above us, the ridge was crowned with slow-spinning white metal turbines. About us, heat-bleached rocks were scattered where no fir trees dared to climb. Below us, the rounded canopy of the forest's summer foliage was punctured here and there with dark evergreen spires, and lay like a shapeless blanket over the hillside all the way down to the shore of a bright blue bay. Across the water, I could see the shape of an old town as a jumble of terracotta-tiled roofs, and noticed that splashes of oleander pink marked its avenues. Shadows of clouds high above our heads sailed over the view like flat grey battleships, giving momentary relief to all they touched. A startled shout caused me to turn and squint at the portal, which had sprouted a long green arm. Its palm was open, as though reaching to shake hands. In a flash, Action Man number 1 had drawn his sword and severed the alien limb just before its elbow. Purple blood gushed from it before it was swiftly withdrawn through the portal. And that was first contact, which we fumbled. The hyper-focused boffins were on the flopping arm like seagulls on unguarded chips, cramming it into a large specimen container as I said some choice things to the action men. With no time and not much information to go on, I made a gut call that trust had to be re-established. I stripped off my shirt, took up a position in front of the portal, and reached my arm through, mimicking their gesture. It felt like pushing through dough for a moment before it yielded and I felt cold air on skin I could no longer see. A hand gripped mine with the warm, recognizable pressure of a greeting. Then the sensation was cut off and I staggered backward, off balance and missing my right hand. The Action Men medics didn't have much to do. I wasn't bleeding, the stump having emerged healed as though I'd rehabbed it perfectly over several years. The lack of blood did nothing for the shock, however, so I watched the rest of what transpired with a ketamine drip hanging out of my remaining arm. Time passed strangely for me after that, but as I saw it, a city of temporary structures sprang up around me to populate that hillside, just as the town across the bay was evacuated. Mobile labs ran every test known to man on the alien's severed limb. In the time it took us to conclusively prove it wasn't human, but quite closely related to our own DNA, whoever was on the other side sent us a gift. A glass vial of golden liquid was posted through the portal. I remember the excited whoops of our boffins in their lab when they realized what it was. A panacea for all human ailments, no doubt retroactively engineered from my cells. Things felt hopeful, and I clung to that whilst avoiding reflective surfaces that would remind me of what it had cost. No one outranked my clearance enough to remove me from the centre of things, and, even medicated, it would have taken a lot to pry me from what I began to realise was ground zero for the future. The next thing I remember clearly was at night, and for a while I thought it might have just been a night terror or a hallucination brought on by the Ket. Now I know what I saw did actually happen. I was watching the portal from a camp chair and puffing on a cigar donated by the sword-wielding action man. I seemed to be alone with my thoughts, dreamlike as they were, when a shape pulled itself through the dimly glowing portal in front of me. It made little to no sound, and was closely followed by another, and then a dozen more. They were men, not aliens, and they all had my face. I even recognised how well they'd copied my junk. The one-armed Mies flitted out into the camp, avoiding spotlights and patrols, and merged with the Grecian night beyond. One of them remained, however, and, standing in front of me, took my cigar for himself. I woke up in a cell next to 6 beings that looked like me. I think that was about a month ago, although it could be more. I've been moved 3 times, each time with a black bag on my head. I've answered every question of yours as well as I can, but I'm left with one of my own. How am I supposed to know I am me? What am I built on beyond personal ambition? It's a shapeless thing to make one's foundation, and I'd never thought to ask it until I had to prove I am myself. My name is Lawrence Mitchell. It should worry you that I don't have a rank or an organization to cite. I was a ghost, used for greater good, sometimes, and I do not believe I will leave this facility. The stretched static returns for a moment before the listener shuts off the tape. Cigar smoke curls in the air as a one-armed man flips open the accompanying file. Images of executed versions of himself tumble to the tabletop. A handwritten note, not meant for his eyes, reads, "We got the wrong man."
That was wicked.
Oh, very glad to hear that.
I was when they started coming out of the portal, I was like, no, that's terrifying. I don't like that. That's so deeply unnerving. Actually, like from the they all had his face. No, 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 no. Like there's so many moments in it that made me just go, "Oh God, no, no!" You know, like the soldier immediately attacking. I just thought
Mm.
this is so worst case scenario, but exactly how we would handle this sort of thing. We being the collective planetary we.
Yeah, the collective stupidity of humanity.
Some absolutely wicked phrases in there. Some like first of all, I love the word boffins. Doesn't get used enough anymore.
I agree.
Real
I agree.
old school spy movie word. Love that. But quite early on, you said explanations were needed less than conveniences. My note next to that was just damn.
Yeah.
It it really did paint the picture of this world weary character very quickly. This just done with it, you know, who we then find out later is not that man, and that everything we know is false. The most unreliable of unreliable narrators. But also big points for like seagulls on unguarded ships
Yeah.
because that gave me a good chuckle. But yeah,
Yeah.
the really good theme through of you know, it starts as words and how the meaning of words change and how that becomes distorted, and applying that to sort of the idea of the self and the self being distorted. Just yeah, really nicely done.
Oh, thank you.
Thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know we've spoken to people before, and that, about where their starting point when they're writing something, like where does something come from, and I was kind of struggling with Foundation as a prompt because of Isaac Asimov's Foundation series.
Yes.
So it was really difficult, as you might be able to tell, to divorce it from like sci-fi stuff in my head. Um, so I just started writing a little speech about how I feel about the foundation of um, our culture and
Yeah.
that we live in. And yeah, so I wrote that, and I think that's about 100, 200 words or something. Um,
Yeah.
and then it didn't have anything else on it for ages. I had no idea where it was going, who was saying it, or why they were saying it. Um, so it's always fun when you find your framing device. I've been thinking more and more about
Yeah.
framing devices recently. Um, but like this is told through somebody clicking a recording to start and then to stop. That's
Yeah.
where the lion's share of all the words come from. Um, and I think it's long enough that the audience kind of forgets that a little bit. So
Yeah.
I think it does catch a little a spike of at the end.
I when the static hissed, I went, oh yeah. So
Yeah,
you did
first
get me
occur.
with that.
Yeah. I just had a lot of fun with it, and I think I was just trying to break everything down to its constituent parts to justify why this story was good for the prompt foundation. So I think that's also why you've got the soldiers that he's with. They're probably highly professionally trained, very world aware people, but they're just called action men through the whole thing because that's all they are to
Yeah.
him. The scientist, who are extremely well educated and very knowledgeable at everything, are just called boffins the whole way through. Just wanted to sort of reduce everybody to these like building blocks that he uses inside his perception of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I got to write about Greece, which I recently got back from. Um,
Lovely.
so I don't know if you do this when you go places, but when I was just sort of wandering around, uh, like sometimes like paragraphs or sentences just like sort of slam into the side of my brain, and I have to write them down before I can really engage with anything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Um, and so there was quite a lot of description in here that came from notes that I made hastily whilst on holiday. Um,
Interestingly, I
yeah.
had the opposite in Japan, where I would look at things that were so different to what I'm used to that I was like, I don't know how I'd describe this, and got to really think about it and enjoyed that a lot. So, but
Yeah.
didn't take notes like a fool.
Um, yeah, it was interesting. Isn't it? I know we've had a guest recently that that talked about being on holiday and
Yeah.
like just allowing things to like soak in. I believe it was Luke Jennings who wrote
Yes.
the Codename Villanelle books, the Killing Eve books. Um, and I hadn't actually put together, but I think I did have that in my head when I went when I went on holiday. Um, there is something about writing too much. I don't know whether I'm setting myself up wrong here, but like there is something about writing too much, and like if you imagine your brain is like a sponge, just constantly squeezing it means that it doesn't have a chance to like refill.
Yeah.
Um, and I think obviously we've had a little bit of a break, and um, I sort of my sponge felt filled up, if you want to put it that way, and so I enjoyed squeezing this over you.
Oh, yeah. I feel thoroughly soaked by
Good.
it. So
Well,
we recently, this was a sort of
oh
behind
yeah,
the
yeah,
curtain thing.
yeah.
We increased our word count, well, our allowed word count. So it's now 800 to 2,000. Did you breach? Did you go beyond our normal limit?
So yeah, so normally it's 1,500 is the limit, and
Yeah.
this uh, people paying attention will have been able to spot that we were either going well under that or occasionally, quite frequently, actually breaching it already, which is why we've made that change. Um, and this did breach. This is just shy of 1,700 words, so it very nearly used the whole thing. Um, and I think that that's a quite a natural thing. I think we've sort of organically discovered why there are these distinctions between things like flash fiction, short
Yeah.
stories, novellas, etc. Like there are kind of like natural story lengths. I'm sure somebody could completely disprove what I'm saying, but this is just how I feel about it. Um, that like it felt like if it was a short concept, it really did feel better when it was 800 words. You know, a little
Yeah.
bit on the sort of flash end of things. Um, and if it was a longer concept, but it was definitely a short story, it I found that I was developing a reflex to quickly cut off a story, um, in order to realize that I needed everything that was currently in it, and I wanted it to close. If that makes
Yeah.
sense, it sort of my hands became a bit claw-like in that kind of like last couple hundred words before the limit. Um, and so I had to really unlearn that for this one. I had to just sort of not worry about it and just be like, no,
Yeah.
just allow it to be a natural length. And I'm quite happy with the length here. I think there's potentially some stuff that could, as with all of the things all the stories we read out on the podcast, I think there's bits of this that could be cut about, made improved, and added to.
Yeah.
They're very rarely a finished product, and I think that's part of the point, isn't it, for us to knock it about? So I think
Yeah.
we've opened up a possibility here to discuss slightly longer stories, which I think is all for the good.
I'm looking forward to you turning up with your 2,200 worders now, Ben.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah.
I think it's very exciting.
Right. Foundation is the prompt, and you have also written a story, and I am most desirous to hear it.
Marvellous. I shall tell it then. The words laid here before you are the account of Dagran Bolgraff, as recorded in the council chambers of Queen Mary Glimmervane. These actions did hereby, and under the sworn oath of the aforementioned recordsmith, take place as written. So say the records, and so it shall be. Current rating of disagreement, as per Dwarven Code, TIFF, multi-clan. Thus is outrageous. Thus were the words spoken by Obrick Broadshaft, 9th of his name. The Broadshaft clans will never accept the stance. It lacks honour, conviction, and control. By my many plats I do swear that our stance shall be unmoved. You are, and let the record show it, a sky-starer. This insult was given forthrightly by Cord Wide Tunnel, 3rd of his name. Current rating of disagreement, as per Dwarven Code, elevated to quarrel, multi-clan. We, the Wide Tunnel clans, know the truth of the thing, and as such will take no disagreements or dishonourings from you. Let the record show that the room bristles. Beards curl at their tips, and a great glinting of many eyes has taken place. Brows are set, but as yet have neither furrowed nor creased. What know you of anything, Wide Tunnel? 3 name as you are, young and impetuous, barely scratch the sediment from your mountain home, and presuming to correct the etiquette of a 9-name family. Shame, I declare, and skullduggery of the lowest degree. A great deal of harumphing is had. Scoundrel! Declares Wide Tunnel, most graciously and correctly allow the floor once again by Broadshaft. Your ways may be old, but this does not make them right. Dwarves dug with their hands before the old gods gave them shovel and pick. Was this then right, because it was first? There is much discussion at this. A predetermined break for side speaking and light refreshments is allowed here, omitting of course the article in question, per custom. After a passing of 15 minutes, a further 5 minutes are allotted for the packing and lighting of pipes, with time allowance to ensure all tobaccos are well caught to prevent further intrusion on the argument. The verdict is returned at 17 for and 9 against, as to whether to dig with one's hands is incorrect. 3 votes are hereby exchanged the other way, as the clans Whittlepeak, Deep Crag, and Winding Walk are made aware that they were voting in the wrong direction. After some discussion, it is agreed the record will show the fault lays not with the clans, but with the question. This is recorded here, and confirmed as the thing and the whole of it. The floor, as per tradition, is given once again to Clan Broadshaft. Have you found your sense in our intermission, young clan? To compare such an art to shovelling with your fingers shows in fact your lack of ken on the subject. Apologise now, and admit you are ill-mannered and lacking knowledge, and we will happily teach you the correct manner in which to perform the action. There is once again much harumphing and disagreement. That is recorded now, by consensus, as an insult veiled improperly. This will be marked against Clan Broadshaft, reparations to be made for sneaking, snuffling, or otherwise truth-shading at the next clan gathering. The floor is taken once more by Clan Wide Tunnel. Bugger off, you old goat! Shove it up your bottom, which is twice as deep as any dig your clan could manage, and full of more value. Current rating of disagreement, as per Dwarven Code, elevated to Set 2, multi-clan. At this time, the record must reflect a great drawing of steel and stone, a clanging of hammer and axe, and the sharing of words selectively omitted from this record. The disagreement rating has been downgraded to Set 2, despite Clan Broadshaft's insistence it be escalated all the way to kerfuffle, or even the rare and hallowed kicking off. There is a calming period allowed of 30 minutes, followed by a hydration allowance wherein beers, both frothed and still, may be served to allow quenching. A vote allows Cord Wind Tunnel to maintain his stance as clan speaker for the ongoing Set 2, though he is issued a fine of 3 carts of ore and a month's labour for any 2 of his children at the leisure of Clan Broadshaft. The record stipulates these children must be hale and hearty and not cause any damage not requested by Clan Broadshaft. At recommencement, it is decided that words bear insufficient power to decide the outcome of the Set 2. Combat is overruled by a vote of all clans to none. It is decreed instead a set be brought forth and displays given, in correct courtesy and use. It to then be decided by clans in attendance. At this time, a water boiler, 2 mugs, a jug of cow's milk, and a bag each are brought forth. Beet sugar is disallowed, agreed by all clans present, because what is even the point then? You can't taste it with that muck in it. Clan Broadshaft are named to go first. The milk is entered into the mug. "That's not how you bloody do it! That's minging!" So says Fengi's side searcher, 22nd of his name. "Were you raised in a barn? A roofless barn? Milking first?" Current rating of disagreement, as per Dwarven Code, elevated to Ruckus, multi-clan. The record here should show that Dagran Bolgrath's records cease, as he fled the scene. His statement to the council says he got a mug in the chops and bloody scarpered. It's only tea, why is everyone getting so leery? Dagran of Clan Bolgrath has been summarily executed for his words. The council will reconvene in a year and a day, and hopefully put this whole thing to bed.
What the fuck? I love it. I love it. You just took the fucking guardrails off your brain there, didn't you? I loved it.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean, first, just some really, really good dwarven stuff happening in there. You know, the names: Cord, Wide Tunnel the Third, Balgruth, Glimmervane. It goes on. Deep Crag, Winding Walk. I really enjoyed the way that you set up the dwarves. There was a little Pratchett reference in there, wasn't there?
There
At
was.
least one.
The thing and the
which
whole of
is
it.
The thing and the whole of the thing. Yeah, that's a third reference. Very good. And yeah, I like it. Read a little bit like someone reading the cricket scores on the radio, right? Like that was the sort of the vibe of it. And I really enjoyed how like codified the disagreement was. You know, the way that it kept on being escalated, and it was almost like they had VAR, wasn't it? To like go back and be like, well, hang on a sec, that was a truth shading.
It was
Yeah,
definitely some of the football on my brain. They also had a hydration break. So
they did. But it was 30 minutes and they could drink beer, which sounds like a way better idea.
that's a brilliant plan, yeah.
I take it there was no ad break. They didn't use it to play ads to the captive audience.
The elves got ads.
The elves got ads. Nice. I chuckled loads, but one of the ones towards the end was the stuff about making the tea. And what is even the point then? You can't taste it with all that muck in it. It was just delightful. It tickled me. It sort of rambunctiously rolled along in a very interesting way. It was quite esoteric, I think. I think you've got to be quite into dwarves to get that story.
Possibly, yeah.
But I don't. That's not a criticism. I think that's fun. There was so much harumphing. Like you were saying, that boffin isn't a word used enough. Harumphing needs to be a bigger deal.
Need some harumphing boffins.
Harumphing boffins. There you go. That's all going to be our side podcast. Harumphing
So we just named our band, didn't we?
No, we get 2 scientists and we harumph at them. So it's not harumphing boffins, it's harumphing at boffins. I think that would be.
Yeah, we are harumphing the boffins.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is a brilliant idea. Stay tuned, everyone.
I like Sky Starer as an insult, a dwarven insult. I think that was good. Yeah.
It's always fun to play with those. Pratchett did it brilliantly. Always talking about the low king instead of the high king, and I think playing with this idea of a culture who revere being underground instead of looking up at all the wonderful things that are in the sky. I thought so. It's a fun.
There's a thing in that book about endarkenment being better than enlightenment as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because your eyes open wider in the dark, and it's just gold, isn't it? But I don't, obviously we're referencing Pratchett quite a lot here, but this felt more, like towards the kind of like the Warhammer, like fantasy dwarf kind of.
I can see that.
Things with blood and stuff like that. It was like a score announcer at a game of Blood Bowl a little bit.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to say is it felt like all of the ways that you approach, I know, is a very beloved concept for you. in genre fiction.
Yeah.
It felt like ways that you approached that you just kind of distilled it and went for it with a fairly tight story, because that was not long, and it really felt like we got to
Yeah.
see an interesting way that a different play out. Go on then, talk to
I
me about
think
where it came from for you then.
so. I really struggled with the prompt in a similar way to
Right.
you. I think
Yeah.
a lot of the ideas I had just weren't anything, and it was making a cup of tea, and I put the bag in, and then I put my sweetener in. I thought, isn't it weird that some people do this the other way around? So what is the foundation of a cup of tea? And it came from there, and I thought, who would really argue about this? And as it often does, my brain went, dwarves. Dwarves would definitely get a kick out of that.
I love it. What do you see a 9-name family as? Because I wrote that down and I liked it, and it was one of those ones where if you were reading the start of a fantasy book or something, it would tickle your interest. You'd want to read on to find out what a 9-name family is.
So it was 9 generations running a mine was the theory. So you've
Ah,
held and run it for that length of time.
damn.
But it could be something far more interesting if I was expanding the story.
No, I think that in itself is interesting. It sort of implies, because the my I am not a miner, as you might be able to tell. But my understanding is that you can empty a mine. Like you can, like it's still a
Yeah,
finite thing that you're digging into the ground for. They can run dry. They can. I don't know what the term for it. Lie fallow. That sounds more like fields. No idea. Anyway, you can run out of diamonds in your diamond mine. Is my point. So to
yeah,
have a 9 generations of long-lived dwarves who are very good at digging still be mining that mine, it does imply that either they've used all of the resources to, they've turned it into different kind of capital, like political capital or whatever, or it's just a really abundant mine, possibly both.
yeah.
So yeah, it's a good bit of world building in just a simple turn of phrase that just rolled off the tongue. It was just everything played well together. There was nothing that stood out in like a that didn't work. I don't think I'd change anything.
I do think it's really interesting that we both did a found record
Yes, yes, we did.
for our take on it. That's an interesting one to both get from Foundation.
It would be nice in this kind of instance, because we have this kind of conversation a lot on this podcast, don't we? Where we're like, why was that the thing that links those two stories? Sometimes it's really obvious, like sometimes it is
Yeah,
just really obvious, but sometimes it's not. And I think this is one of the instances where it's not. And it would be nice in this circumstance to have like a psychologist on staff that we could just cut to, and then they could do the play-by-play breakdown that you just did for the dwarves, but for us.
these two men are severely limited. And then
These
we
mentally
harumph at them,
deficient men.
Ben.
Yeah,
We
well,
harumph
yes,
at them.
yes, that's why we can harumph the boffin. I like it. Check that your boffins are thoroughly harumphed.
Yeah, everyone, if you've got a boffin at home, feed them, water them, harumph them. Just take care of them. It's hot out.
I will say there was only one. Actually, I'm going to take back what I said. There was one bit
Ooh,
that stood out for me. It was just the one thing that didn't quite trip into my head correctly.
gone.
It was the surname Balgruuf right at the start,
Yeah,
because I'm fairly sure that's a major NPC from Skyrim.
it is.
Jarl Balgruuf. He's the first Jarl you go to see, right, in that game.
I definitely did the dip in your brain for a Norse name, and that
Yeah.
came out.
Yep. So I just had to like, that was just me. I just had to like separate that. I was like, that's not what he means. It's definitely a dwarf. But
I'm gonna have to go back through the whole thing in that silly voice from the game, aren't I?
oh, really good stuff. I'm glad. I'm really glad that we've had an opportunity to put out one of these where it's just thee and me,
Yeah,
and just tell a couple of stories and have a chat about it. It's lovely as always, man. I feel very lucky to get to do it.
it's the best time every time.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Tiny Bookcase.
Remember to subscribe, otherwise you're going to miss out on the future fun.
Also, tell a friend. If you like this episode, link them to it.
We'd be tremendously grateful. You can follow us on Twitter at BookcaseTiny, Facebook at The Tiny Bookcase, and Instagram
at Bookcase Tiny for updates.
Speaking of supporting the podcast, well, magic can only take one so far. The Tiny Bookcase is supported by the generosity of its patrons. Those kind souls have really kept my belly full the last year. Let's cast a spell for them, shall we? For rich ginger tones on their scalp, let us cast the Orangi Hedondo spell for Scott Byrne, and for general fabulousness, why not the Ooh La La How's Your Mother spell on Matthew McLaren?
How do you come up with that shit, man?